All right. Welcome, everybody, to Sound Thoughts with Pastor Marvin McKenzie today. A little bit late. Made some changes in life lately, and you'll see some of this in the podcast for today. May 13th, 2023. Kind of give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with my wife and cancer. Of course, triple negative breast cancer. The triple negative stands for um, estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, HER2 receptor. So what they do with cancer is as breast cancer, is they look for if it is estrogen receptor positive, then they can put some estrogen in with the chemo, with the drugs, and the cancer will look for that estrogen and ingest it, and when they ingest the estrogen, ingest the the chemotherapy, and it'll help kill it. In the case of Anita's cancer, it's triple negative, so that neither estrogen, progesterone, or HER2 will help them fight this. So they don't really know. They just put some poison in her body and see if some of it will kill the cancer that happens to be there. And our some people call this cancer a journey. I'm choosing not to call it a journey. I think it's more like a marathon. And that marathon, we've been doing, I guess, the warm ups lately, but we begin the marathons coming on Monday. My wife really is the one who's going to run the marathon. I suppose I might be a coach or an advocate. Is about the best that I can do for her with this thing. That begins on Monday. We have a schedule now that's laid out through the doctors all the way through May of 2024. The first parts of it will be pretty intense, and then it gets a little less intense as time goes on, of course. We had chemotherapy class last Thursday. That was certainly sobering. I've been doing some research on this cancer, and I've not been talking to Anita about what I've been reading and saying and learning. And so a lot of what I heard in the chemotherapy class we took was not new to me, but it was to Anita. Certainly was sobering and challenging. We walked away from it, both of us, very, very, down, especially Anita. Hard to think and hard to kind of to move forward with all of that's going on. One of the things that we discovered is this thing is going to be. We had heard that this thing, after putting in the port last Tuesday, all of a sudden they scheduled, and it was going to be 9 days in a row. We have to go to the doctor 9 days in a row, and then there's 4 days off, and 9 days in a row again. Some of the doctor's appointments would have been in Puyallup, which was about 30 minutes from where we were staying at the time in our RV at my son's house. And then some of the appointments were going to be in 2 days a week. We had to go to downtown Tacoma. That's more like about an hour trip, and that was going to be on Saturdays and Sundays and all of that. So what we did is we decided we needed to move, get a little bit closer to the hospital. Let's talk more about that in a minute. That schedule was certainly, it was just, we thought about saw that all, that for the next 8 weeks, 6 days a week. We didn't really know about what happened after the 8 weeks. The first 8 weeks is the most intensive. And so we went into the chemotherapy class. They did all of that, and we got home that evening, and the computer, this is all on computerized online, and the whole schedule was gone. All of the injections for immunity support were gone. And so Anita called on Friday, got a hold of someone finally about noon on Friday, and what we learned is that she had been approved for a different immunity booster, which is once a week shot rather than a once a day shot. That really does make things easier for us, so that it's 3 days a week it's 3 days a week instead of 9 days on, 4 days off. It's amazing that that little change seems like such a big thing to us. The chemotherapy is still going to be difficult, or it can be. There's some people who go through it and it's not too much challenge, but it can be very, very difficult, and so that's still, there. And but we're on a positive road, and we've got our kind of got our bearings on us. And we'll see how we do once the actual battle begins, marathon begins. Messages for tomorrow I'm working on. I'm going to Sunday school is going to be out of Jude chapter 1 verse 22. I'm going to call it contending with compassion. Contending with compassion. We are in a battle. And we're in the battle with the forces of the prince of the power of the air, the spirit of darkness that worketh in this world. We're in a battle, but the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, they're spiritual, not carnal. And one of those weapons, and it seems so counterintuitive, but one of those weapons that we have at our disposal is compassion. We'll be dealing with that tomorrow. Then in the morning service, I'm going to talk about using Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. Let's speak about how did Christ give himself? I always think about the sacrifices on the cross, but there's more involved in what Christ did than that. So I'm going to speak about that during the morning service, the Lord willing. So that's coming up tomorrow. I did mention a moment ago that we have moved. I don't know if you can tell out the window. The scenery is a little bit different back there than it had been. We've moved to a little park setting that we built several years ago at the church, and we've had a missionary stayed here. One of our missionaries, Brother Lance Street, lived back here. He and his family in an RV. I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I guess. We've had many, many evangelists and so forth come through. They've stayed here. Oftentimes, they talk about how relaxing and quiet it is. We've got it set up with water, and there's a dump, and there's sufficient power of 50 amp power here. So about everything you need. And then we've got a prayer path built in behind here, and it really is a park-like setting. So we're going to be staying here at least for the time being. It gets us close to the hospital and gets us close to the clinics that Anita will be going to. At some point, probably around July, we'll be moving back into our property that we have in Spanaway, about 6 miles from the church, just in order because we're not really sure of all that Anita is going to need for this battle with cancer. My youngest son's going to move into the house. He and his family are going to move into our house. We're going to move our RV in there. We've got to put in some new power and some water things to kind of get that set up, but we're working on that. And we're going to set that up and there, that way, then if Anita needs the resources of the house, she'll have them at her disposal as well during during those days that might be the most difficult. It sounds like day 3 and 4 after chemotherapy could be the most difficult ones for her. So she's working, putting that together. And maybe about July, the people that are renting the house are in our church, a nice young family. And their agreement with me ends on the 1st of July to stay there. And we could have extended, but we've talked to them and they've agreed not to extend so that we can get in there and have that resource available for Anita. And on the area of prayer, just 2 things I'd like to ask you to pray for. Pray for my family. And we seem to be, not only is there cancer, some other things going on, but we do seem to be under a tremendous spiritual attack right now. That's nothing to be afraid of, because greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. We know that our God overcomes. Our God wins this thing. But nevertheless, the battle is pretty intense, and we're going through some pretty intense spiritual battles right now, and ask you to pray for us concerning those things. Also, just a matter of prayer. Pray for those involved that are involved in my teaching ministry, our teaching ministry in other countries, especially the United Arab Emirates, India, and other parts of the world. Some I don't feel like I want to actually name because of the sensitivities of those places. But with some great men of God serving in very challenging and difficult places, who begin to access my materials and to help them. Things that I've written and put together, and now and also with my daily visits with God that I put together. Many of them are on that, and some of them have requested prayer from me When I consider um, the ease of life that God has given me here in the United States of America compared to what it means to be a Christian in some of those places, I feel unworthy to even pray for them. And I'm honored that they would ask. But if you keep those ministries in prayer, I sure appreciate that. And finally, today, and I'll finish with this, I do continue to seek means to help me with the pay the extra medical expenses. And again, insurance looks like it's going to cover the vast majority of this. We don't know for sure what everything's going to cover, but I am seeking ways to help me to pay for this. And one of those things you can do is help me is by purchasing either one of my books, or I've also that I've got on Amazon.com, or I've also got some things, some T-shirts and other items like that. T-shirts and some coffee mugs, some water cups, different things like that that are available for purchase. And I get about between 70 cents to $1.50 per item purchased, and we certainly appreciate that. I'm not one to really ask for help, and I appreciate that there have been those who've just given. I do appreciate that very, very much. And some have given extraordinarily and generously. But I believe that it is more appropriate for me instead to do something to earn my keep. And that is what I'm attempting to do. So sure appreciate it. And you'll see in the description down below there, you'll find the URL for both Amazon and for Teespring. And so until next time, God bless you. Amen.